Now the number line is one way that you can represent the range of values. Another way we can do so is by representing the set of values of an inequality through a form known as interval notation. So this would be our compound inequality, and the equivalent in interval notation would be A and B with a bracket and parenthesis on both sides. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. The smallest value and the largest value of the set are enclosed by either a bracket or a parenthesis. We use a bracket if the value is included, and we use parenthesis if it is not included, and it can go on either side. So in this particular example, we have A is less than or equal to X. So since it can be equal to, we use a bracket. And since it's the smallest value, it's the first number. The smallest value in the set is going to be our first number. The largest value is going to be the second number. And based on the presence of equal to or lack thereof, we'll determine if we use a bracket or parenthesis. Less than is not equal to, so we use parenthesis here. So let's say you had to write the interval notation for the number line. We have a filled circle above -2, and we have an empty circle above +1. So how would we write this in interval notation? Well, it starts off similarly to how you would write the inequality for the number line. So step 1, draw a dotted line from the first circle down to the number line. So we see we're at -2. And step 2, we see that the expression can equal -2 since the circle is filled. So then step 3, since it can be equal to -2, you place a bracket to the left of -2. So this represents the smaller end of our interval. And now we want to represent the larger end of the expression. So step 4, draw a dotted line from the second circle down to the number line. We see that brings us to +1. Step 5, we determine if the circle is filled or empty. So we see it's empty, which means the set does not include +1, which means step 6, we're going to place a parenthesis to the right of the 1. So the answer would be bracket -2 to represent the smaller end, bracket because it can equal -2, and to represent the higher end of our set, we use parenthesis since it's not included, and +1 is the largest value in that compound. So that is how you would write the interval notation for compound inequalities. Let's go ahead and have you do a few practice questions. Write the interval notation for each number line. Question number 1, question number 2, and question number 3. Pause the video for a moment, write the interval notation for each of these number lines, and then press play when you are ready. Okay, so let's take a look at the first number line. Question number 1. Step 1, draw a dotted line from the first circle down to the number line. So we see we wind up at -5. Step 2, determine if the circle is filled or empty. So we see that it's empty, which means -5 is not included, which means step 3 is going to be to place a parenthesis to the left of -5. So this represents the smaller end of our range of values here. Step 4, let's now take a look at the second circle. So draw a dotted line from the second circle down to the number line. Step 5, we determine if the circle is filled or empty, and we see it's filled, which means for -3, step 6, we're going to place a bracket to the right of the -3. So the answer to question number 1 is right here, parenthesis, -5, comma, -3 with a bracket. The smaller end is -5, and it is not included, and the higher end is -3, and it is included. Let's have a look at question number 2. Step 1, draw a dotted line from the first circle down to the number line. So we see we're at -1. Step 2, determine if the circle is filled or empty. So we see that it's filled, which means we are going to have a bracket to the left of -1 to represent the smaller value in our set. We place our comma between them. And now step 4, draw a dotted line from the second circle down to the number line. We see we wind up at +3. Step 5, determine if the circle is filled or empty. It's filled, so we use a bracket since it can equal 3. And this would be the answer to question number 2. Bracket -1, +3 bracket, with our comma in between our values. And then question number 3. This time we have an arrow instead of 2 circles. Step 1 is still the same though. Draw a dotted line from the circle down to the number line. We wind up at +4. Step 2, determine if the circle is filled or empty. We see that it's filled. So our set will include +4 on the lower end. And we put a bracket to the left of 4. And now, remember, the arrow means that it's all the values that are larger or greater than +4, which means this arrow is heading towards +infinity, not a specific value. So we determine if the arrow is pointing toward +infinity or -infinity, and we see that it's +infinity. So that's going to be the second value in our set. And you would never put a bracket on the side of infinity, since infinity is not an actual number. It just represents a continuation of our positive values. So you always have a parenthesis on the side of the infinity. So this would be the answer to question number 3. Bracket 4, comma, infinity, with a parenthesis to the right.